Is your spiritual practice or business causing spiritual or cultural appropriation? Hi, my name's Asha. I'm trained as a molecular biologist turned modern priestess, and I am a perpetual business witch. And I want to make sure that we all feel the balance of feeling good, being wealthy, and giving back. So let's talk about appropriation versus appreciation. Wow. This is a loaded topic because I know that people in my generation were so hungry to acquire spiritual knowledge. Let's face it, we live in a Western culture that is void of spiritual tradition, not because it's not present in the lands where we live, but mostly because from generation after generation, we've really lost our ancestral connection, right? And when we lose our ancestral connection because of colonization or because we move from place to place as a lineage, we lose actually who we are, and we become hungry, and we become desperate for any source that's available to us that can really give us a sense of being connected and a sense of spirituality. And when we look at what is available and what has maintained its course through time, we look at older traditions such as Chinese philosophy, such as Hindu philosophy, and so on, right? And so these living traditions, and even African traditions that have been maintained through time, through space, through colonization, through patriarchy, they've been maintained by the people. And then we have a group of people who are hungry and disconnected. And then what they decide to do is like, oh my gosh, this philosophy fills a part of myself. And so then we take from all these traditions and we do our best to incorporate into our lives. And sometimes we see, people from my generation where they start taking pieces from different traditions and forget that there's an origin story and there's a sanctity of why these traditions were maintained through time, through space, through colonization, through patriarchy. And when we cherry pick, we actually do a huge discrediting of those traditions. And we think we're doing our best, but it's mostly we think we're doing our best because we don't know any better. And to quote Maya Angelou, when we know better, we do better. And I'm hoping that in this conversation that you and I are having, you sort of start understanding where you may have taken from other traditions that may not be a part of you, but you didn't know what else to do. So now, what are you to do? First of all, what I would highly recommend for all of us, no matter where we come from, is that we connect to our own ancestral lineage. This is something that we walk people through in my school, the Modern Priestess School. We walk people through this sense of connecting to themselves and also sense of connecting to their own ancestral council. I would highly encourage you to, even if you don't know where you come from, if you've been adopted and you have no idea where you come from, or it feels as though everything's lost, or you come from, a country where it seems like there's nothing there, nothing's available, nothing on Google that you can find, you don't actually have to have a book, or you don't actually have to have a physical resource to connect to your own DNA. I mean, right? You don't. You don't need information to connect to who you already are. So what do you need? So one of the things that I really like to encourage people to do, even in a simple way, is to just begin ceremony. Begin ceremony with your ancestral council. And this can look something as simple as lighting a candle and calling them in, setting an altar where you have all the elements covered: fire, wind, like an incense, earth by having a plant, and water, just a glass of water. And even a glass of water that's holding a flower can cover you for water and for earth. And when you set up an altar like that and you just invoke, and one of the things that we always want to consider is also asking permissions of the indigenous stewards of the land where you live. So looking up who are the original indigenous stewards of where I live. And when you find out, paying reverence to them, asking their permission before you begin any kind of ceremony is a great way of making things right for all the things that we have done that's not appropriate, that is taking from another culture. Just beginning by the very ground where we sit, we can do a lot of right. So if you feel as though there are parts of your own spiritual practice or your business that are taking from other cultures, here's what I would recommend. Aside from the ancestral work that I mentioned, I would recommend that you really give credit to where those traditions come from, very first of all. Second, I would recommend that you put your money where your mouth is, meaning if you are profiting from another culture, then it is only right that you also give a portion of your business profits to an organization from where that culture is from. And that is very easy to do these days. And it's giving the appropriate credit, giving monies to the cultures where the traditions that you're profiting from come from. Those are two really, really powerful ways. Third, I think it's a really important thing that if you've learned some spiritual traditions from people who are not of those cultures, that you retract a little bit and say, you know what, I'm going to make a commitment to actually learn from people who are of that culture. So if you've learned yoga from a white person, then now is the time for you to deepen your understanding of yogic traditions from somebody who comes from that culture. Another thing that you can do is begin to incorporate the things that you are finding out about your own DNA through that ceremonial process. Begin to incorporate that more and more into what you do, and trust that you have everything within you. You have everything within you to bring whatever medicine it is that you need to bring to yourself, or if you're using this for business, you have it all within you. And again, if you're utilizing from other traditions, other cultures, then give that credit, or maybe even invite people into, if you're doing a coaching program or something like that, or some kind of program where you're profiting from a spiritual tradition, bring in those teachers. Not only will it make you more credible, it will also really anchor in this kind of new way of appreciating, truly, truly appreciating. And the last thing that I'll mention, just really make sure that everything that's happening in your business, if you buy spiritual tools, or if you share resources with your community, I really want to invite you to go to the resources of those cultures, go to the resources of those spiritual traditions, because even though it can look as though, a white person can easily make a mala, it is not the same as someone who has it coursing through their veins, how to bring a spiritual practice into a material form. So I hope that this is helpful to you, and I do want to invite you to first subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you can receive videos when they come out. And then I also want to invite you for a free resource that will give you grounded feminine principles that are non-appropriating, and you can get that at ashaisnow.com/priestess code. ashaisnow.com/priestess code. Thank you so much for listening to this. And really just remember Maya Angelou's words that when you know better, you do better. May you feel good, be wealthy, and always give back.